Let me start by saying this, and I'm going to speak very candidly, as many of you may have heard me speak very candidly yesterday on CNN. We're at an extraordinary crossroad in American history. And at this very moment, much of what we saw on yesterday in Charlottesville is a surprise to many of us, but in many ways it still is not a surprise. It is amazing how over the last 7 months, and even just prior to the most recent election of our most recent president, we have seen the attitudes and hatred and discontent and short patience and lack of compassion that somehow has risen its head even much higher than what it had in the past. We're a nation, I truly believe, that is much better than what we saw on yesterday. But here's what's really very important. There is no room for hatred in this nation. If you look around out here, you look to the person next to you, we all come from somewhere. We all originated from somewhere, but somewhere along the way, we made our way to this great America. Some of you came by way of your own volition. Others, as myself, may have came under a different set of circumstances. Our histories may be different, but our patriotism and our love for this country is the same. We're at a time in American history that what we saw demonstrated on yesterday, we will fight back and we will fight against. We will. We will not stand by idly in this community, in this state, in this country, and allow people who deserve and has the right to be free, to have a voice, to have an opportunity, not to be taken from anyone and given to anyone else, but to be shared equally and justly and fairly and impartially. We know that we are not a perfect nation, but what we do know is that we're going to have perfect intent. That as long as we are Americans, as long as we are all standing together, this is a great nation. And it was a great nation long before Donald Trump. So I don't want to confuse partisanship. So I'm going to step away from the politics of this, and I'm going to speak to you as an American lawman. 40 years I have been in public safety. 40 years I have committed myself to each and every community that I lived in. I was sworn to protect, to provide fair and impartial justice. So tonight I'm not going to speak to you as a politician, elected or appointed. I'm going to speak to you as a lawman. And as a lawman in this nation, we often hear the terms of law and order. And depending on who's using that language, it certainly has a fearful sound to it. But let's define law and order in the 21st century. Not how it was defined by Bull Connor in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, but how it's going to be defined in the 21st century. The law is there for all of us to obey and abide by, to be heard and shared equally. And when the law is broken, there's consequences that we all endure. And when we do break the law, we feel that we've been treated fairly and equally and equitably under the U.S. Constitution. Regardless if a prisoner is arrested, none of us have the authority to mistreat him and her under the U.S. Constitution. And when we hear that type of remark of treating prisoners, people who are still yet to be tried and convicted, to treat them differently, unfairly, and brutalize them, is not the America that we say that we are. And none of us going to stand idly by and allow no one, regardless of who you are or where you're from, race, gender, sexual orientation, religious preference, we all are Americans. And we all will conduct ourselves as Americans under a Constitution, and we will abide by the law. And we will police each other first, because there's something to be said about community policing. It's not about just my relationship as a police officer with you, but it's about our relationships that we have with each other as community residents. We have the responsibility to look out for each other and take care of each other. And when we see each other going in a way that we know it's not right, we have a responsibility to speak up and speak out. And when we talk about order is very, very simply that we all will conduct ourselves, enjoy and love the country that we live in, treat each other fairly, and do whatever we need to do to make sure that everyone, all of us, are being respectful of each other. Because in this community, right here in Rochester, New York, across this state, across this country, there are rallies going on just like this. But we got to do more than just talk. We really got to do. We have to do. We have to make this happen. We have to resist hate and violence. And even when you are around your friends, and sometimes even when we're with our families, we hear remarks that we know are discouraging, or sexist, or racist. We have a responsibility not to be silent, but to say something. So I encourage everyone here tonight that with what's going on in this country at this very moment, that we all are so torn and angry and saddened by, is that we did not come here tonight just to cheer each other on. But let's make it meaningful that we came here tonight to do everything that we can as a community to make a difference. And the difference starts with us. We're not going to accept hate. We're not going to lay down to hate. We're not going to be intimidated by hate. And we're going to take every breath in our body, whatever it takes, to make sure that every person in this community, in this state, in this country, are treated equally and fairly under the U.S. Constitution, which we all, whether we like it or not, if that's what our government said is, then apply it equally and then apply it fairly to everybody.